In the beginning, you were nobody. Who are you? The fans cry. You're in over your head, the papers say. But you don't listen, even when the losses come, when the board says the clock is ticking, when everyone says it's over.
What we've tried to do with Football Manager 2010 is really improve the experience of playing the game for both new and old users alike. With Football Manager 2009, it was actually our best-selling game ever. We had, I think it's 22 weeks at #1 in the UK in the PC chart, and we're also voted the second best game of all time by Radio 1 listeners, which is a pretty amazing accolade to get. But none of us in the studio were really that happy, particularly with the box release. It wasn't up to the standards that we set ourselves. I think it got there after a few patches. What we want with FM 2010 is to really have that experience from day one. We've spent a lot of time working with our community, but also doing usability studies for people who've never played the game before, and tried to look at what areas of the game people were able to find easily, which parts they couldn't be bothered playing, and also seeing quite how in-depth they go with the game. And we learnt a lot from doing this. We've completely overhauled the interface for the game this year, just to make it look a little bit less like something that you'd see at work. You know, we've been influenced a lot by the internet and also by things like iTunes and various other apps that we use here, to just try and make it feel more like fun when you're playing the game. And a lot of the features that have been added have been things where the game has always gone into a lot of depth, but we weren't actually introducing that depth to the user very well, or making it easy for them to use. So something like the Backroom advice section, which means that your staff will advise you on tactics and players to sign and things throughout your whole game world, which players should be being asked to do what in training and things like that. Some of that stuff was already in the game, some of it's new, but there was no easy way for a user to find it. So we've worked very hard on trying to improve that side of things, as well as a host of new features. And really refining a lot of the old ones as well. For many years in our games, we've had a tree menu on the left-hand side, which has been the main navigation area for a lot of users. But there are actually two other ways to navigate the game as well, and we decided to cut one of those out and try and have a main focal point. So the navigation of the game has now moved to the top part of the screen, which is an area that most people look at most of the time anyway. We've also got a calendar timeline there, so you can always find out what's happening in the next few days. And trying to make it so that options that were slightly hard to find in old menus are now a lot easier to find in the new menus. A lot of the work has been done working alongside a company called Flow, who are usability experts. So we've spent a lot of time doing usability testing and usability studies on the new interface, seeing what people like and what they don't like. As with all of our previous interfaces for the last few years, the game is completely skinnable. So at launch, you're going to see two skins for the game, a light skin and a dark skin, because some people thought that the skin was a little bit too bright. So I've done a darker version of it as well. Also, if you install the game through Steam, you don't have to buy it through Steam, but there are two installation choices when you purchase the game, a boxed copy or digitally, and you can install the game through Steam. One of the bonuses of doing that is we're actually going to release a version of the Football Manager 2009 skin for FM 2010. So if you are an experienced user and you really can't do without your tree menu, then you can have it back, although I would plead with everyone to give the new system a chance first, because once you do get used to it, it's so much easier to find things. Talking to the community has also been imperative, and we've spent a lot of time on the forums. We've actually got a guy based in our QA department here now whose full-time job is to go through the forums and talk to people on there about the issues that they have with the game, the bugs that they have with the game, and logging feature suggestions from the forums. Getting feedback on that is really important. So we've expanded the off-site beta test team that we have as well, which is made up from people who've put together really good constructive criticism on our forums, or who are reporting bugs in a way that's easy for us to understand. And we started testing a lot earlier this year as well. So hopefully that will lead to a much better experience for the customer when the game does come out on October the 30th. With any of the features that go into our games, we always expand upon them year on year, and whilst we were relatively happy with the 3D view last year, obviously if we want to reach the heady heights of the amazing graphics that you see in some football and other sports games at the moment, we've still got a long way to go. So we've got over 100 new animations inside the game, as well as improving on every single other animation inside. On top of that, we've also got crowds in the game and stadiums. So each club that you manage, or each ground that you visit, will be different, because in real life they're different as well. And the way it all works is basically we've got lots of jigsaw puzzles, lots of different types of stand, and the game will put all those bits of stand together. If the stadium is full and sold out, you will see a full stadium. But if it's half full, half the stadium will be empty, because certainly on a lot of other sports titles, the stadium's just full the whole time and you've got a static crowd sitting there. It's not realistic. We've also improved the shadows and lighting inside the game, made those a lot more realistic, which was very important with the new stadium module, as well as adding weather effects into the match engine. Now, again, the weather effects aren't just there for, oh, look, you can see rain on the screen. If it's raining in real life when you're playing football, different things happen on the pitch. The ball might get stuck. Players might turn slower. And things like that are all replicated inside the match engine as well. We do, in the long term, want to be the best looking football game on the market, not just football management game. But we're doing what we can each year to try and reach that goal. One of the results that came back from the usability studies that we were doing was regarding the tactics module. We felt that we needed to do something more football based and make it easier for people, because the sliders were confusing people. So the system that we came up with, and we work very closely with the community on this, there's the tactics forum at SI Games website forum, has some incredibly clever people on it who would go in and analyse every single slot on every single one of the sliders. But everything is football based. So when you're setting up a tactic, you have a nice short few steps that you have to go through, where you choose your mentality, where you choose whether the team are going to play fluid or rigid football, and you can set up individual instructions very easily for each of your players. So rather than just having strikers, midfielders and defenders, you're able to set box-to-box midfielders or advanced playmakers for the midfielders, deep-lying playmakers, defensive-style midfielders. What it's essentially doing in the background is adjusting the sliders for you. These are presets. So rather than taking hours to set up tactics, it now takes a couple of minutes to set up a tactic, and to set up a much more advanced tactic that you wouldn't have been able to do, previously. And then inside the game, rather than having to go to the tactics screen each time you want to make a change or move a slider up one notch, there's over 20 touchline shouts inside the game. It means that if you have noticed that the opposition, maybe the fullbacks are playing quite narrowly and you want to exploit the wings, all you've got to do is press a couple of buttons and it tells your players to go and play wider. There are also extreme things you can do, such as pump the ball into the box, which gives massive long kicks into the box and hope your tallest striker actually gets onto the end of the ball. You can also make quick substitutions from these areas and other quick tactic changes. But again, if you want to go into the tactic screen and go and do things in more detail, you can do. If you want to give individual instructions to substitutes coming on, you can do. You can also do substitution team talks now as well. So if you're substituting a player and you want to G up the player that's coming on, that's nice and easy to do from the tactics screen. One other addition to the match side of things this year is a match analysis tool, which allows you both inside a match and after a match to analyse every pass, every shot, every tackle that both your players and your opposition players have made. This is the kind of information that managers get after games of football, and they will sit there and look and watch watch to find out where players have gone wrong. It's an important addition to the game for people to be able to do that as well, and really be able to analyse not just how their tactics are working, but also how the individual players are working with those tactics. So it's definitely a feature for the more advanced user, but hopefully people will get some kicks out of it and see it as something that helps them improve alongside the backroom advice that they'll also be getting from their coaches. With the backroom advice module, it's basically a way for people to discover quite how deep the game is, whilst making it incredibly easy to use. You get advice on all kinds of areas of your squad and your tactics. The assistant manager will even go to the kind of level of telling you that you're conceding most goals between 15 and 30 minutes, so maybe you have to look at changing something in your tactics at that point to get your players' concentration up. They'll also recommend to you players that you should be looking at signing. They'll recommend staff that you might want to consider taking on to improve your backroom staff. They will give you information about players' happiness and maybe needing to praise a player if the player's feeling down, advice on when you should be offering players new contracts, what kind of training the players should be doing, what kind of things you should be asking the players to learn how to do. It highlights lots of areas in the game that we don't think are used enough by people because maybe they've been quite complicated in the past to use. How good the staff are will determine how good their advice is going to be. One area of the game that we've had massive differences of opinions of from the community and the people doing the usability studies has been the news inside the game. Some people want to be completely immersed inside the game world and be getting news and information about leagues around the world and players around the world, whereas others literally just want to know about their club. So there were lots of debates going on exactly how we dealt with the dichotomy of people wanting both, wanting their cake and eating it. So we've just made it completely customisable, really. You start off the game with what we feel are the minimum settings of the kind of news that you should want to be getting. But you can then subscribe to news on any player, any club, any league, any competition, anywhere in the world, and be getting news on those directly to your own personalised newspaper and edit those at any point. One of the things that our community have been asking us for a while is a competition editor, so that they can actually add new leagues, new levels of existing leagues into the game. Now, we already provide 50 countries leagues inside the game, which is quite a lot. I think there's 170 odd divisions that you can play as, but there are people out there who want more. So, who are we to refuse them? That right? So, we've been working for a couple of years on a competition editor, which does what it says on the tin. It allows people to add new countries' leagues, and it also allows people to add new divisions to existing leagues and new competitions to existing leagues. You can also change the format of the Premier League or the A-League or any division if you want to, but to do that, it's a little bit more advanced, the kinds of things that you need to do. We've seen people setting up countries' leagues in a matter of minutes. We've seen people adding more levels to the English divisions, for example, in about 20 minutes, half an hour. And we have some of the best data editors in the community actually helping test the data editor. And that gives them a bit of a head start, because that means they'll actually be able to provide new competitions on day one. So any competition that you edit inside the game, you can make available to download, and people will, I'm sure, be going to a lot of the unofficial FM and SI websites to go and get these downloads. We know of a bunch of divisions that people have got ready to go. It's certainly a lovely new feature, and one that lots of people are going to have a lot of fun with. The game feels a lot more cohesive than ever before, because the improvements just give a much slicker experience. The speed of the game is much quicker. It's the best game that we've ever made in the 17 years that we've been releasing games. I'm incredibly happy with it, and am very confident that we're going to give people the best Football Manager experience they've ever had.
Time stands still. Now it's your team's colours filling the air, and it's you holding the cup. You who did what no one else could have done. Football Manager 2010.